So something I've had on my mind recently is who every team's most important transfer is. Who is it? Who do you need to have be that instant impact, plug and play, stereotypical portal addition that comes in and just fills an immediate need? Well, for Boise State, that may very well be Malik Sherrod. This is a gaping question mark for a team that was the G5 favorite to make the playoff going into last year. They won the Mountain West, went 12-1, only loss was at Oregon. And so they, got into that spot and I thought held their own against Penn State. Yeah, it was a 31-14 final score, whatever it was. It was so long ago now. I mean, who really remembers? But what I remember about that game, it was competitive. Boise got off to a slow start. Then they fought. It was close. Penn State pulled away. They were the better team, but the Broncos did well. But they had Ashton Jeanty, who was bottled up to just over 100 yards on 30 carries in that game. A normal running back might not have hit 80. Jeanty was so freakishly good. He'll be the first running back drafted in the 2025 NFL draft, of course. But insert, in theory, Malik Sherrod, who played in just 4 games this past year for Fresno State after battling an injury. And Ashton Jeanty in 2024 ran for over 2,600 yards. Malik Sherrod has not run for over 2,600 yards in his career. He's going into his 6th season of college football, by the way. He's got a COVID year in there, got an extra year of eligibility after not playing much this past season. But when healthy in 2023, averaged over 5.5 yards a carry and almost eclipsed 1,000 yards for the Bulldogs. Really talented guy. And I have it on good authority that they like this guy and they think very highly of him. And they need him to be that highly productive player, 1,000+ yard rusher. Because I'll get to Maddox Madsen in just a moment. Boise State does not have its leading rusher returning in Ashton Jeanty. Who do you think their second leading rusher was last year? It was Maddox Madsen. They did not have another running back that hit 200 yards on the season running the football, because they had some injuries in the room and Ashton Jeanty was, a bell cow sort of back. So this question for Boise State is going to hover around the program, at least in my mind, until the season starts playing out. And I'll talk about their schedule in just a moment because they have some very, very interesting high-profile games, including one you probably don't suspect. But Jeanty was so good, and he was as focal of a focal point as you could be as a running back to a team's offense. There's going to be a drop-off. You can't have a guy go for 2,600 yards in consecutive seasons. Now, that's in 14 games, of course, but still, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that a guy in Malik Sherrod who's never run for 1,000 yards in his career, he hit 966 in 2023. He's an incredibly capable back, presuming he's fully healthy. I certainly hope that he is. And I don't think Boise State would be bringing him in if they didn't have some confidence that his medical situation will be okay. That's just my suspicion. I don't know that firsthand. But let's say he has a really good year, a career season. They keep running the football well. Their offensive line is really good again. And you look up and Sherrod, whoa, he's exploded. He's got 1,400 yards. That'd be a great year. Go look at the number of running backs that hit 1,400 yards per game in a season on the ground. It's few and far between, even in the world of explosive offenses. And he would be 1,200 yards less than what Jeanty did a season ago. 1,200. That's another separate great running back season in this hypothetical. So this question looms large to me for Boise State. Maddox Madsen threw 3 interceptions the entire year. He is game manager personified, but in the best way. He goes out there and just makes the right throws. And yeah, they're undergoing a change at offensive coordinator. I suspect they'll be fine. He makes the right reads. His arm is good enough. He runs well enough. He can make the right throws. But he's also got a big change. And that's that his 2 leading targets from this past year, they're not there anymore. So he's got to find new receiver dynamics. That's what the offseason and spring football is for. But he might have to play a bigger role than he did this past year. Because Maddox Madsen was solidly productive. He was over 3,000 yards passing, 62% completion, 23 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. Now, that 3,000 yards came in 14 games played, of course. But this is a guy who, when he had to be the focal point of the offense in a big game, the biggest game of the year against Penn State in the college football playoff, he got picked off 3 times. That's not where Boise State wants to be. That's not where they need to be if they're going to not just get back to the playoff, but win a game next year. They have to be able to be more successful running the football. And all of a sudden, they're going to try to do that without one of the best college running backs we have seen in the last 10, 15 years, who just had one of the best seasons ever in the history of the sport. That's a tall order. But one of those two things is going to, not those two things, these two things. Tenses are difficult, you know? One of these two things has to happen for Boise State. Maddox Madsen has to become an even better version of himself. I think that, frankly, is more likely than the other thing I'm suggesting, which is Malik Sherrod goes out, stays healthy the entire year, and runs for over 1,500 yards. That'd just be asking a lot from that guy. They might have to do more running back by committee, showcase the depth, and find that same level of production, because that's also a huge part of why Boise State's passing game was successful last year with Maddox Madsen at quarterback. So that question hovers around the program in my head. And Malik Sherrod, maybe he's that guy. I think he has to be the biggest transfer that Boise State has brought in this past cycle. But speaking of Boise State in 2025, did you know that they play at Notre Dame? That's a matchup of 2 reigning playoff teams. Yeah. October 4th. Look, college football scheduling is wild, crazy, weird, random. I kind of wish this game was played earlier in the year, but Notre Dame is opening at Miami, so I don't know that I can be too upset that this one is randomly stashed smack dab in the middle of conference play. But, of course, Notre Dame doesn't have a conference, and so as a result, they can just kind of do whatever they want, schedule whomever they would like to. But Boise State's schedule, it is not a cakewalk. Not a cakewalk. Now, you don't have Oregon State and Washington State as you did a year ago. That scheduling alliance is not there for 2025. And now, it feels a little bit different now that Boise State is, going to be in the Pac-12, of course, beginning in 2026. But they've got to face Colorado State. They've got to go at San Diego State, who could be improved. They've got Fresno State. They go at Utah State. I listed those games in the wrong order. It goes home Fresno, at San Diego State, host Colorado State, then at Utah State. Those are the last 4 games. And oh, by the way, they play UNLV again for, the 8th time in the last 2 years or something like that? Not actually, but it kind of feels that way. Those games are always tough and competitive. So the Notre Dame game is kind of the Oregon replacement from last year. That is the high-profile, Power 4, on-the-road, marquee game that could let everybody know Boise State's for real. I suspect they'll be undefeated going into that game. They start at South Florida. That game could be tougher than you'd think. Eastern Washington at Air Force. Never easy. Never totally easy. And then they host Appalachian State, who goes up and down as a respectable G5 program. But if they go 4-0, that game at Notre Dame will be highly intriguing, especially if Notre Dame has already beaten Miami at that time. You'll be talking about a couple of potential playoff teams. But that Mountain West schedule, I've seen more favorable ones for Boise State or, frankly, anybody in the league. But that game against Notre Dame, that's the circle matchup. That's the game that I'll watch and go, okay, how is this Boise State team post Ashton Jeanty? What are they truly capable of? Because if they're able to go to Notre Dame and at least push the Irish to the very brink like they did Oregon the previous year, I'll know, they've got it figured out. They'll have 4 games to figure out what's our offense, how do we run the football, how do we do so many things without Ashton Jeanty here. And then they'll go to South Bend, and we will see just what they're going to be able to accomplish.